right. We are here. We are hanging tight. We are no longer hanging tight. We are going to dive into some stability today. So utility season, I think, is just right around the corner. We've seen reports all over the news about how stable coins and real world assets has actually overtaken DeFi. And to help me navigate this a little bit deeper, I'm going to talk with an expert here. I've got Dr. Martin Hiesboek here from Uphold. And, you know, he's been talking about stable coins and regulated markets for a long, long, long time. So maybe you can... maybe you can sort of sit. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah. Well, things have changed, right? Crypto shall never be the same, and we need to learn that there is a difference between that crypto circus that we've been living in since 2015 and what's going to happen now. I think this is a watershed year. I'm seeing this everywhere. Things will never be the same. Saying it poetically.
Yeah. And I'm going to share my screen here for a second because it's pretty wild, right? So we have the total stablecoin market cap. It's actually overtaken DeFi. And something that you and I have actually talked about and pointed out for a long time is how regulation is going to play a factor in this. The writing was on the wall years ago when they laid the groundwork for MiCA, right? Yeah. And you can see now that there's more of an influx in USDC versus Tether. And when you dive into even that, this you can see who the big players here are. And,
they're not here yet. They're not here yet. So what we thought, I mean, for the longest time, we have been talking about adoption, right? Institutional adoption. And we thought when the big business came in and when the ETFs were launched, that would somehow elevate this crypto space to respectability. Right? That's not it. It's trying to destroy it and reinvent it, because that crypto space is not in the interest of the rich and powerful. Being able to trade Bitcoin and Bitcoin option on the CME and having ETFs and all the vehicles with which they have already made their money, that's what they want, and that's what they got. We now have a completely different Bitcoin. This isn't the Bitcoin I mined 56. Oh my God, I'm getting old. Way back in the day. This isn't the Bitcoin we've been talking about since from 2015 to 2022. The idea that it is this universe, this pure new reinvention of money, that's gone. The idea that it's a store of value is gone. Certainly the idea that it's a global payment system of any sort is gone. Nobody on this world pays with Bitcoin except a few surfer dudes in fucking Ecuador. So Bitcoin is now an institutional asset. And you see that. You watch the interest rates go up and down, and you see people moving in and out of risk assets. Bitcoin is now an institutional risk asset, right? It is no longer the orange wonder or the big dream. And in exactly that way, people are adopting, so institutions, banks, companies are adopting blockchain technology. This is what counts, the technology of blockchain, but nobody gives a fuck about crypto, right? So if a technology wants to make an impact, it has to do something new or something better than, why is my computer reminding me to update just right now?
Yeah. Don't update now.
Hit this device. Go away. No, I do not want to update now. You have to cut this out now. It wants me to upgrade to some 0.18. No, I do not. Sorry. No, how do I stop this? How do I move this away? You need to cut this out later. When you can start again. I'm sorry. No, I don't even know. Oh, help me. I can't get this window. I can't get this window out of the way.
I can still see you.
Yeah, you can still see me, but I don't see you. I have a huge window. Please update now. Doesn't matter. I don't have to see myself.
Okay.
Let's continue unless it becomes untenable.
Okay.
I'm sorry about this. I had to switch on a different computer because on my main one I didn't have Chrome installed, and your software only works with Chrome. So where was I? So there was an idea that crypto is what it is, and you got different blockchains, like you got your Polkadot and your Cosmos and your Ethereum and your whatnot. And when institutions came, they would love them and they would trade them, and suddenly everything will be all right. And that's just not the case. That is not the case because all of these blockchains have lived in silos, right? There was a siloed approach to development. For the longest time, it was impossible to find any developer at Project A to know anything about Project B, right? They would always answer to me when I talked to them, oh, I don't know how the folks over there are doing it, but we, And for the longest time, crypto was a pissing contest, right? It was football teams playing each other. Mine's bigger than yours. Mine's faster than yours. Mine's got more scale. Mine's got more TPS. Mine's got this feature. That's not what this is about. This is not about individual crypto projects and blockchains slugging it out and trying to find out which one's better for the purpose. Instead, this is about the creation of a completely new world, a world of data that runs on a reliable, verifiable, immutable, much better network than we currently have, right? So when institutional adoption came, we were all excited. ETFs are here and Bitcoin went up a bit. And then for the longest time, all the way until now, it just basically hasn't moved. It dumped again, it up and down. But there was no, remember the promise at the time of the halving, we're going to go to 200K and all this shit. It didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen because these people don't care about Bitcoin and its technical future or features. Now, what they really care about is, what does blockchain actually do for my business and for my bottom line? That's the main question. Now, if it makes things faster, cheaper, and more profitable, I'm going to look into that. Exactly, like any other software vendor who would knock at my door, I would look at their software and say, does it do things better than my old version? Is it cheaper? Is it more efficient? And in many cases, they found, it doesn't really do anything for me now. And in some cases, they found this is an important step. And only very few people saw that this is absolutely the future. But the future has many faces and many participants and many people who have different interests. So going into a company, a big top 100 company, and saying, please use this blockchain because it's better than this other blockchain, that's not a sales pitch, right? That's a self-referential circle jerk. It doesn't make sense for anyone to adopt somebody's special blockchain project because they themselves think it's better than the other one. What it really needs to do is solve problems. And this year, people in banks who are very, very familiar with the crypto system, so even if officially no bank in the world has adopted any public blockchain, the folks who sit in banks all trade meme coins at home while watching the baby, right? So these people are very familiar with crypto, but they didn't make the connection with the actual business until stablecoins came along. Now, stablecoins have a unique feature. is that people understand them. For me to explain to a complete noob what Avalanche is or what Solana is, that takes an hour, right? I have to start with what's a block, what's a nonce, and all this. So to go in and try to explain to people what a hypergraph is and the direct and acyclical graph is basically hopeless. But to explain to them, hey, it's $1 on a blockchain. It's a different technology, but it's still $1. That makes sense. People thought, I reread a book recently from 2012 that said by the year 2020, employees everywhere will receive their salaries in Bitcoin. Nobody does. Nobody does. No corporate accounting system in the world can deal with Bitcoin. If you look at American companies, they have problems dealing in Canadian dollars, not to mention euros or yens. Don't ask them to introduce Bitcoin to their accounting procedures. Now, you and I and the average Joe, we get our salaries in fiat currency.
Yeah.
People, foremost, most of all, we need to live. We have families to feed. We have children to send to school. These schools send us bills in dollars or in euros or wherever you are. So for all of us humans, the fiat currency that the government in the country where we live issues makes sense. Whereas Bitcoin doesn't make sense. You know, why should I why should I calculate even the Bitcoin value of my kids' high school fees? That doesn't make sense. So Bitcoin never took off as a payment system. As we saw with the Ukraine war, in times of crisis, it never was a safe haven of anything, right? You got one little blip. You saw this summer with the Japanese yen. Bitcoin dumped, right? Gold more or less held, but Bitcoin dumped. It's no safe haven. Is it a long-term store of value? God knows. Right now, it's a risk asset that many people are still staying away from.
Oh, and we we lost them, folks. So I will stop this and maybe we can get them back. Hold on while we I think he's still got the same link. Hold on. So while we figure out what is going on with his connection, I mean, I was going to get into how there is interesting things happening on blockchain right now. Like you have the California DMV that just minted 42 million card titles on Avalanche Network, which is pretty amazing. Hold on, I'm just messaging him back, as you know. So he had that update. It probably turned his computer off. Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
There we go. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, it was the blip. So while you were gone, I was pointing out that there is some interesting stuff happening, you know, right now. But what surprised me is it didn't really move the market, and it almost seems like nobody cares. Like, so I don't know if you can see, but I have here. So the California DMV put 42 million car titles on blockchain using Avalanche Network. And, you know, I thought for sure that would get some momentum going with Avalanche, but like nothing. It seemed like nobody
it's
cared.
Like writing, it is like writing the police department of San Antonio starts using SAP software, right? It's not going to move anything. This is business use. this is business news. Why should that impact the price of Avalanche? What would impact the price of Avalanche would be a quarterly result that showed $100 million profit because of that.
Yeah.
What we
That's
still
interesting.
don't, it is now all institutional, and institutions have quarterly report. Show me the money, right? And analysts react to money flows. They don't react to the spurious news that somebody put some stuff on a blockchain.
Right, and that's probably why the same thing. So a couple of days ago, you had Franklin Templeton and Citigroup both announced that they were going to tokenize stuff on Solana. And that was on surface level like big news for Solana. And I think it moved the price of Solana 1%.
It shouldn't move it at all. What would move it if the article said Solana earning $5 per mutual fund investors using the chain? We are now in the institutional age of blockchain, and institutions rely on analysts, and the only thing analysts and the business world understand is money. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't reflect the bottom line, because you don't know what liabilities Solana has. Solana could have $50 billion in debt, so that this little event wouldn't at all change the business perspective or the profit margin. We have to get used to the fact that this is now institutional, and that means show me the money. The days when any of this kind of news move the price of a crypto, they are gone.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's interesting because, I've sort of talked about this too with respect to Alchemy. Right. And they absolutely are showing that they're profiting. Last quarter, they earned $139,000. That was revenue that they generated on the exchange. And what's crazy to me is if you look at that number, it's actually higher than most of the top 100 networks.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with Alchemy. Ben Putley and I are good friends. But once again, a business analyst will tell you that's very nice. They earned $130,000. How high are their liabilities? Where's the quarterly report? Where are the company figures? Right? Oh God, not again. This computer is driving me crazy.
But getting back to the to the stable coins, I mean, it's and Franklin Templeton, I think that they're one of the top institutional investors in crypto. I think the number one is BlackRock, but right behind them is Franklin Templeton, and it's pretty interesting if you look at them specifically, like the networks that they're choosing to align themselves with.
I think first of all, people like Franklin Templeton talking about blockchain is fantastic. Mm-hmm. The fact that they did this on Solana is huge news, not for Solana. It's huge news for Ethereum, because for the longest time, we've been told that all of this blockchain revolution would be happening on Ethereum, and it won't, right? This is the first big slap in the face for Vitalik saying, hey, not the future of blockchain is not Ethereum, and not everything is about Ethereum. It is a huge, huge news item. But once again, it doesn't move the needle, because as we are moving into the institutional crypto age, the people who offer opinions inside these companies cannot give an answer how profitable a company is. So if you were to make an investment decision in your first crypto project, and if you would choose the most profitable, you would go for Alchemy. Alchemy is absolutely the most profitable. And then your CFO would say, how about their quarterly report? How about their financials? How much debt do they have? And we know fuck all about the background of these crypto projects. Mm-hmm. In other words, until we have done the first step into institutionalization, But until we have clear guidelines and these blockchains become companies with quarterly reports and annual reports and shareholder meetings and numbers that analysts can follow, until this happens, the prices of altcoins will not move. And lo and behold, they haven't moved, except a few exceptions this year. But the idea that we had Bitcoin rallying because of the halving, and after Bitcoin, there's altcoin season, that age is gone. The institutional age of crypto looks completely different. And going back to stablecoins, about 3 years ago, I was in Zurich and in Bern at the Swiss National Bank, and I explained to them what a stablecoin actually was and what it could do for them. And one of the participants in the meeting said to me, so it actually makes moving the money faster and cheaper. I said, yes, okay, and that's something they could get behind. In 2025, the Swiss will be the first country in the world to launch the Swiss franc and other currencies on stablecoins and switch some government function. I mean, actually, Italy is already doing this in part. And for these to take off, they cannot use a company like Tether, where we still don't know where it came from and how its reserves are actually made of. And they won't be using USDC because it's an American company. And why the hell should the Swiss government use some crypto product by an American company? No, they will create their own. We are now at the point where big institutions and banks and national banks have the knowledge to create their own blockchain-based cryptographically secured assets. And so you will see, and you are already seeing, an explosion of stablecoins. You will see all sorts of stablecoins, company internal ones. For example, the company Siemens creating a euro Siemens stablecoin only for internal purposes because it makes accounting so much easier. That is not a crypto project. That is not the adoption of crypto. That is the realization that blockchain technology is the thing that matters, and not your bloody meme coin or your crypto project. Some will work together with big companies. There's a lot going on with Polygon and Avalanche and Solana, obviously. Solana is more relying on their own efforts, right? But Avalanche is being used across the board. There are people doing portfolio management systems on Avalanche. But unfortunately, it might move the needle in terms of users like you and I buying a bit more of this and that. But it will not move the needle in the way a stock reacts to news when it affects the bottom line of the company. People still don't realize what it means for crypto. Crypto will disappear, blockchain will stay, and blockchain is now a software technology adopted across the board. Some blockchain projects, will survive and will flourish, and others will simply disappear because they don't get this.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting that you bring up the fact of people issuing their own stable coins, and I think that's part of actually what's going on within the National DigiFoundry and the United States Department of Treasury. Right here, they're part of this. They're part of this DAO, and one of the people that's chairing up this financial product tokenization working group is a company that you're familiar with in Toronto. So they're working on the digital representation of a dollar that's not a stable coin, right? Because there's like you pointed out, there's no way that like a Swiss bank or even the country or any of those countries would really want to back themselves up by somebody else's currency, right? And it's the same thing in the United States. You don't want everything issued in Tether, right? You want it represented.
Definitely not.
You want it represented as the dollar.
Use case.
Yeah.
No. There's no practical use case for Tether outside this existing crypto system. But what will happen is this explosion in stablecoins and this total switch of the financial system towards assets based on blockchain. That's the real revolution now, right? And for crypto, unfortunately, we are still stuck with the problem that these entities, whether they are foundations or DAOs or whatever, they have no legal representation. They are not recognized. And until they are and become an integral part of our economic system and have their quarterly reports and their board structures, and we've spent the last 200 years creating the economic system that we have, and the boards and the reports and the accounting standards. And if something doesn't comply with these AML standards and KYC standards and accounting standards and all, they're not part of the economy. And this is the big step of regulation that's going to happen in 25 and 26. MiCA was a beginning, right? MiCA regulated the existing crypto. The next step is to bring this existing crypto into the mainstream economy. That's the big deal for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And it will happen because of stablecoins. It will happen because banks are going to say, hey, for all our branches, we're going to use the HSBC stablecoin for the dollar because it makes accounting easier. I know exactly which money flows are internal and which are external. I only have to look at the blockchain data to see how much money we transfer around inside the company and what goes out and what goes in. It's a snapshot.
And Tether is, as you pointed out, Tether is not MiCA compliant. And the biggest changes in the past month of issuers from switching, right, and issuing more USDC is pretty remarkable. I mean, you have 𝘂𝗍, right, which not a lot of people paid much attention to last year, and this company Wormhole, right? So it's like nobody was really talking about these guys last year. And if you look at these guys,
on Uphold, we have like 20 networks using USDC now.
Yeah,
we totally jumped on the USDC bandwagon.
Yeah.
I think there's like 20 networks where you can shift your USDC around, and it's still USDC, and the network doesn't matter, right? The technology doesn't matter. You as a crypto user, you're gonna choose Tron because it's so much cheaper and so much faster. But a banker doesn't care about this. They care about whether it's a compliant asset or not. Totally.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What we thought adoption would mean turns out that's not what it is. The adoption is starting now. And secondly, what is happening now, finally, is I always imagine the world of blockchain like 16th, 17th century Europe. You had your little towns, your little villages, your little hamlets, your major trading centers. Some were connected with roads, others were not. Most of the towns had their own judge, and they governed their own rules inside their own little towns, and nobody ever went to the big city to ask the big judge for an opinion. That was the world of the Middle Ages and all the way up to the first Industrial Revolution, where the landlord, the fief, the duke ruled over his subject, and everything was contained. People didn't travel. People didn't go beyond their immediate little town, right? Now we live in a totally global world. The same is happening in blockchain. The crypto we've seen so far is totally isolated little towns and little hamlets where judgment in matters of dispute was passed by the Bürgermeister or whatever you have it. And there was no structure of governance of a country. We are now moving into the age of global blockchains. There must be many, not just one, not Ethereum. There must be many, and they must all be able to talk together. Then we have full decentralization and full redundancy and safety. We are moving into a complete multi-chain world. And the biggest imperative we have now is to make different standards and systems talk to each other. Not working away in your little Solana asylum and only knowing Rust and only having friends who like Solana, but learning how to transfer one of these mutual funds seamlessly onto the Casper network or Ethereum or the Bitcoin DeFi network. These assets cannot live on a single blockchain alone. They must be they are digital assets on the internet. They must be universally transparent and transferable while still keeping all their wonderful properties like immutability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
so we are now going together.
No, you're right, and you bring up an interesting point, which I tried highlighting a couple of months ago after it was announced the additional members of DREC, the Decentralized Recovery Alliance. I think, the future of distributed ledger technology, blockchain, whatever you want to call it, is not in these siloed, isolated environments. The only way that we're actually going to get mass adoption is by things like the DREC, right, where everybody's working together on a shared set standard. Yeah, because you're right. I mean,
and you need standards, and you need industry standards. But let me go back for a step to the stable coins. Stable coin adoption is not a matter of one entity choosing a stable coin over another. Mm-hmm. What will happen is the Bank of International Settlements and SWIFT have realized that this is the technology of the future. They will introduce stable coins to the network. Banks want as little trouble with new software as possible, right? So if suddenly their SWIFT transaction works on a stable coin, so be it. They don't care, but they will use it. And slowly the banks will realize this stablecoin thing is actually running on a decentralized blockchain network. So why the hell do I need SWIFT for that? I could just send that directly on that network. And then the light goes on. Then the light goes on and people will realize SWIFT is selling me stablecoins. I now understand the stablecoins. Ergo, I do no longer need centralized entities like SWIFT. That's the process that will happen in the next 5-6 years. When the big players, the big institutions who we cannot hold accountable because they are multinational organizations like the BIS or the WMF, right? The IMF, nobody holds them to account because they are multinational, they're supranational, they don't follow specific countries' laws, and they have a lot of power. And if they adopt the technology, it is to save their own ass. SWIFT needs to get into blockchain in order to live a few more years longer. And once the banks have figured out that, hey, we can just use the USDC stablecoin and swap it into Ecuadorian peso stablecoin, we don't need to pay all these fees. And I still can make the business transaction happen. And at this stage, it will be through stablecoins that the world financial system will realize that they are relying on expensive mediators who dictate terms, who are already using blockchain. And because they are, and I now understand what blockchain actually means, a world of completely mutually interconnected, decentralized networks, I no longer need them. That's where the revolution will happen. That's the real crypto revolution. When the banks say, hey, SWIFT, okay, using stablecoins, I know how you use a stablecoin. What actually are you charging me for?
Mm-hmm. So as we round out, and what do you think? Because clearly, you and I were both right on regulation, and we can see that happening right now. You have MiCA. You also have over in England that they're going towards like a shared set of standards. So outside of stable coins for like real world adoption, like what do you see as the next like peek around the corner?
If I peek around the corner, the most important thing globally, unfortunately, is again an American thing. And as so often, it is a debate in the States, and a small small, tiny problem in the States that will affect the complete course of crypto over the long term. And that is that the next administration has to realize that this is not a question whether 𝗂𝗵𝗶 is or is not a security. This is about the fact that this is a technology we all want. The government will want it to make controls over money more efficient, because the government has the mission to keep us safe and to combat crime. So they have to have some anti-money laundering tools. In Europe, I spoke to the crypto expert of Interpol a couple of months back, and they said they have such a huge crypto team now after they realized that 90% of all these funds in human trafficking and drug movements and stuff and economic crime, business crime, is actually conducted over crypto, over blockchain. So if their mandate is to keep citizens safe, they have to understand blockchain. Now, everybody wants this. The government wants it. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, my screen went black again. I need to ditch this computer. So the government wants it.
Yeah, the government wants
we want it.
But there's some people in the government.
Banks want it.
Yeah, but there's some people in the government that don't want it, right? Because of the transparency.
Well, I can't do anything about the dinosaurs who don't keep up with modern technology. I'm sorry. It will happen. It's happening across the world. Hong Kong is turning into a crypto hub. Singapore is moving their entire stock exchange onto the blockchain. It is happening everywhere. And sooner or later, America will realize that this is not a question of whether we follow a law written in 1933 or not, right? The fact that this whole debate with Gensler, whether something is a security or not, please, let's move into the 21st century and realize this is a question of these crypto projects outside of completely leaderless, teamless projects like 𝗂𝗲𝗀 with a K or Bitcoin that don't have a management team, and they're just networks. And that is, of course, the ultimate crypto dream. But all the rest of them, they have CEOs, they have foundations, which is just a company by another name. Increasingly, you see in crypto news that people refer to these as companies, whereas we usually refer to them as crypto projects. Lawyers in government and government officials have to realize that these are valuable. These are not fucking meme coins and toys and entertainment value and speculative gambling. These are valuable companies, commercial entities that have to be regulated and treated the way any other company would be. Not whether what they are offering, whether that's a security or not, that is beside the point. Exactly like in America and Europe, we need to come to a clear definition. Is Algorand a company, or is it just a network that just exists? We need to create a framework for all of these companies, for all of these networks, and decide, do you belong in one basket or in the other? Are you a company with a board and a CEO, or are you just some hacker's creation somewhere on a blockchain? And that, unfortunately, takes a lot of legal advice and a lot of lawyers. And for the first time ever now, it's 2024, and we now have a course in blockchain law at a university in Germany, right? So there is so much change still ahead of us. As long as we continue paying attention to the SEC and framing the validity of a blockchain project in terms of whether it's a security according to the 1933 Securities and Exchange Act, we are stuck. No, we're stuck in no man's land. There has to be this huge change where the American government wakes up and says, hey, I need a crypto czar. I need an advisory committee. I need some wise men to tell me what to do with all these networks and how to classify them. My guess, and my educated guess, because I'm fairly aware that it is happening, we've got all kinds of commercial entities. We have companies, we have partnerships, we have charities, we have religious organizations, we have foundations. There are all kinds of types of legal definitions for commercial entities. Why not create one called a network, right? That network may have a CEO or not. It may be in some way decentralized or not. Probably will have a different name. But you can then register your business as a network. And 𝗚𝗵𝗃𝗀 will be the head of the Avalanche network. And that network will have a quarterly report with profit numbers. And that's when all these so-called altcoins will become real businesses. And then a news item, as you mentioned at the beginning of this talk, will have an actual impact on the price of Avalanche. And this is happening. People are discussing how a network whose services are completely decentralized, but which still has a budget and tokens that it issues, how that entity can be defined in law. And then the question of whether something is a security or not goes away by itself. This is the big change that's going to happen.
So you think that it's going to take more than a stablecoin bill in America. It's going to take,
of course, the stablecoin bill is drafted in the interests of the rich and powerful. What can we do? What do stablecoins do for us? The whole text of the bill it doesn't lead us anywhere. Stablecoin regulation in Europe is somewhat better, but we are all talking about a product here, right? What if I put on attached to the same stablecoin the right to buy an NFT? We have to go back to the drawing board, right? We cannot go back to the legal drawing board for every single technological innovation that happens. And let me tell you, there's a hell of a lot of innovation happening in this world. We have to have basic rules that say it's not a company, it's not a nothing, it's a decentralizing. So what are we going to call it? And what obligations does it have? What reporting standards must apply? So this is the work for the next 2 or 3 years.
So for the companies in the United States, and there's several of them, right, that are based out of the United States. You've got Hedera, you've got Constellation, right. So like, who do you think is going to be the first one out of the gate to sort of lift up their skirt, right? Hedera.
It's probably going to be Hedera because it's already governed by huge companies. And the proposal actually has that for the so-called registered network entity, RNE, is coming with the involvement of people from Hedera and, of course, Ethereum. And so it's happening in the background. We do not know yet what shape it will take. But accountability and respectability can only come when there is compliance with existing norms. In the world of business, everything is governed by the law. And if the law doesn't cover it or understand it, then it doesn't exist. Right? It's either in the law or it's unlawful.
Yeah.
That's the far bigger question.
Yeah. And then here in the United States, generally speaking, before things become like national law and federalized, usually it takes root in states first. And right now you see several states jockeying around to be the leaders in digital assets. You've got Wyoming, you've got Texas, you have Florida, and there's several other states that are really trying to get.
I love the Wyoming approach.
Yeah.
I love the Wyoming approach. When DAOs get regulated, they will use the Wyoming model. I love that.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I've been to Wyoming. I love it. It's one of these great empty states of beauty and lots of cows and cowboys. It's a fantastic place to start the revolution of blockchain technology. Such a high-tech thing.
Yeah, but
here's your favorite blockchain. Would you like a bison with that? Being silly, I'm sorry.
But
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's
Texas is taking the lead with all Bitcoin and mining stuff.
Yeah, Yeah, it's going
Much
to
of
take
the
this
financial stuff will happen in New York.
In New York, huh?
The reason why the New York license is so hard to get is because there's so many people with power and a shirt to lose in New York, right? All the financial institutions are there. So the laws will be shaped, of course, as they always are, in the interest of those who have the most to lose. And they will adopt the laws. And once they appreciate what a network like Avalanche or Hedera or whatever can do for them, and they'll get fully behind the idea of the blockchain revolution, they will make the right laws for crypto. It's a slow process. It's not going to happen overnight. Do you remember what happened in the United States after the end of the so-called Wild West? You had the Wild West. You had one federal dollar, and it was a lawless society with sheriffs and cowboys and Indians being slaughtered and whatnot. And what ended the Wild West is the emergence of a central government who could reach that far. It was the railways that ended the Wild West. And exactly in the same way, we have now ended the crypto Wild West. After the end of the Wild West, everybody issued their own currency. There were thousands of entities who issued a dollar. Every bank, every city, the Bank of San Francisco had a dollar. And every entity could issue a dollar. And all that went away with government control. That's the age of stablecoins that we're in. In the next 5 years, you're going to see an explosion of stablecoins and a revision of these stablecoin rules and guidelines again and again and again. And throughout that process, governments are going to realize this blockchain thing is here to stay. This is not going to go away. So honestly, I've never been more excited about our industry than now, because this tug of war between centralized government and our crypto ideals of a decentralized state where we self-govern through DAOs, that conflict between good and evil, that's playing out now. It's like being in the movies for the next 10 years. I'm just watching the movie of angels versus demons, crypto, wild. I've never been more excited, because I didn't like the last 5 years of meme coin shit and altcoin seasons and all of that, and crypto trading. Now it really gets interesting. Now it's about shaping the future of the world, of our financial system. This technology goes into everything, into trade, into medicine, into everything we can imagine. It's a technology that changes the world. And when people realize that, they will want to have a hand in shaping that new world.
I think you're exactly right, and you're gonna need a system like this that's set up for the new digital economy, especially when you're talking about AI and machine to machine communication. And everybody's talking about AI, but hardly anybody is talking about how I think it's inevitable. I mean, I think
you're going to have factories, machines. You're going to have home robots. You're going to have machines exchanging value. How do you think robot A is going to exchange value with robot B on the other side of the world? It's going to be through a cryptographically secure token.
Yes.
It's going to be on the blockchain. So AI and robotics and blockchain, they go together.
They go together. And, nobody is really talking about that right now, which is, to me, it's crazy. And the whole, we're all going to make it is, unfortunately,
this is idiotic. Crypto Twitter is still in the dark ages, right? They have to wake up and realize that the real revolution looks completely different than fucking Simon Cat or Cat with Hat or Dog with Hat or without hat and all that crap.
Yeah.
This is not what this is about.
Yeah. But it's all exciting. So what would you say? So as we finish out in the last 5 minutes here, what would you say outside of like a stablecoin thing happening in the US, which I agree with you, I think is coming within the next year or so. So like this time next year, if we were to have this same conversation again, what do you think? What do you think we're going to be talking about a year from now?
We're going to be talking definitely about stablecoins. We're going to be talking about how we discovered that CK proof is actually shit, because the only thing CK proof can do is prove what is and not what not is. And unfortunately, in society and in business, too often we have to prove what is not rather than what is. Do you have a criminal record? Yes or no? Then you have to prove that you have not. It's far more difficult to prove that you have not than you have. So CK proof and all this technology will go away and transform and evolve. And that's one of the biggest developments. The second one is personal identity. There will be a huge war about the idea of personal identity, because right now every single blockchain and the European Union, the European Commission, and probably the American Army and everybody's trying to work out what a digital identity means, because our biggest problem is cybercrime. Cybercrime is committed by people in cyberspace who have no recognizable identity. If we want to combat crime and money laundering and avoid human trafficking, we need a form of universal cyberspace identification. And that's going to be, I hope that we will have made progress on this front. I hope that we will see the first, when we talk about next year, I hope that we will see the first bank in the world announcing that they are switching their internal systems to blockchain. I think there's a big chance that we will see this. We will be talking about the results of the world's biggest stablecoin experiment kicking off in Switzerland in spring next year. We will probably be talking about why is Bitcoin still under 80K? That's my expectation. I hope we'll be talking about Constellation, because what people don't realize about DAG and Constellation, people on crypto Twitter, they just want to make money. So they look at the chart and say, oh, it's down again. Constellation, the idea of the hypergraph, of the directed acyclic graph, of using graphs in the way that Constellation does and 𝗂𝗃𝗲 with the K does, that is technically revolutionary. And I hope that people finally realize that that the performance of an asset linked to that over the next few months doesn't fucking matter. Whether the price of 𝗂𝗃𝗲 goes to $1 or not is so beside the point. The point is that does the wider community of blockchain engineers realize that the traditional Ethereum linear blockchain model is crap, and it will lead nowhere, right? Or the Bitcoin model is actually ancient, prehistoric technology. And will we still be fighting over TPS and throughput and scalability and the blockchain trilemma, or will people finally have realized that there's a whole layer of blockchain technology that doesn't even have the problem of scalability in the first place, right?
Yeah. No, I mean you're exactly, you're exactly right. And getting back to like one of the top stablecoin issuers, 𝗁𝘂𝗲, right? So that network is made from former Facebook engineers. So these guys are arguably some of the smartest engineers on the planet. And out of any architecture that these guys chose, they started their network from scratch. What architecture did they choose to build 𝗁𝘂𝗲 on? They chose a directed acyclic graph.
Of course,
right?
Of course. And if you would start, I mean, the thing that we are trying to get people on the Bitcoin train, if you started a network like Bitcoin today, people would look at you and say, what the fuck is this? This is like 20-year-old technology.
I think you're right. I think I'll just leave it here for everybody. I think that you're right, and most of the degens are super impatient. But when you play the long game, like Constellation has done, and you just look at who they're involved with, and who they're working with. You pointed out, ID and verification and all of that stuff. Like right now on the president's desk is an executive order about digital IDs. And, Constellation is the top 1% recipient of all federal funding for blockchain applications. They're working with everybody from the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, FBI, U.S. Treasury Department, the National Science
This
Foundation.
is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So
when we have this conversation in 10 years' time, half the world will run on systems that are somehow involve directed acyclic graph and matrix computing, right?
Right. Yeah. But everything, rounding out, like you said, it's not going to be one network. The only way the path forward is for all of these things to be interoperable. And it's those people that don't participate in this interoperability that I think aren't going to make it. The ones that aren't regulatory compliant are the ones that aren't going to make it. It's because nobody's going to want to associate themselves with that network, right?
I mean, they might make it in a niche application.
Yeah, just like how you have regular websites and then you have 4chan, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's most serious people don't want to have anything to do with 4chan.
Yeah.
But look, I appreciate your time here.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to our talk in a year's time.
in a year's time, and we'll see how right we were. And
I'm always right.
Maybe in a year's time we'll be able to have this whole conversation on chain, so there'll be an immutable record of what we say.
That would be lovely. There are already so many AV systems on blockchain, and nobody's using them as yet. We're still dominated by bloody Google calls and Zooms and stuff. We could be so much further along if people didn't treat this as a crypto investing circle. Anyway, Dagnum, it's been a pleasure, as always, talking to you.
Yeah. All right. And thanks again for your time. And thanks again, everybody, for watching. Leave comments below, like, subscribe. This will be on YouTube immediately. So take it easy, everybody. All right.
And open an account on uphold.com.